You guys are the only seventh graders for today. All right, sorry, e-learners. I started a little bit earlier. Forgot to hit the record. You didn't miss much. Okay, so the last couple classes we've been dealing with data. Data is just information about things. Like I asked every one of you a question. How tall are you? How many sisters do you have? How much money you got in your bank account? That's called data. Data can be numerical in seventh grade, but as we go higher, it can be non-numerical. What's your favorite color? Doesn't sound like that's a higher level task, but in our book, it only considers numerical data, but there is non-numerical data as well too. Often, when we talk about data, like everyone took a test, somebody will say, well, what was the class average? What they're asking is, what's kind of like the middle point? And that's what we're referring to. And the problem is this word average is not a math word, so to speak. We have an exact math word because there actually ends up being three types of averages. They come in three different flavors, and the flavors depend upon what does the data literally look like. As we go in higher level grades, you have to be able to pick the right one to use. Seventh grade, you just learn the three. They don't really get into, hey, for this data, I would use this average. For this data, I would use this average. In common usage, like in everyday speak, when somebody talks about average, most people have an idea what that means. The problem is that there's three of them. All right, write this down, box 1A. Box 1A. The three averages we don't call averages. The three averages we don't call averages. We call measures of central tendency. Yes.
Box 1A already has a bunch of stuff. Yeah, you're talking
Maybe
about
I
7.
labeled them incorrectly. All right. Write this down somewhere in an open box in the back.
I think you're on lesson.
No, I know what I did, which was this is the second class. So therefore I was like, oh, they already have it written down. I wasn't going to make them write it down again. But since you didn't come to school on Friday, and many of you decided to take a 12-day weekend, we better write it down. Now, yes, those are math words right there. But what it does is it encompasses those three, averages. Average is not a math word. It's, it's like an everyday word. Right, Malachi, put your mask on. When we're looking for where is the middle of the data, we are doing something called a measure of central tendency. Central, middle, measure. It's a mathematical method of calculating something. Tendency is because this is kind of, touchy and feely. It's like, where is sort of kind of the middle? If I say, what's 2 plus 3? It's 5, no doubt about it. If I say, where is the middle? It's kind of right here. Where does the middle tend to be? All right, measures of central tendency. There's three of them. So when I ask you to find the middle, 7th, 8th grade, and even into high school as well too, I'm going to give you what's called a data set. So I'm going to give you a basket. Inside the basket, there's going to be a lot of numbers. Don't panic. Sometimes there could be 40 numbers in high school, not in 7th grade. There might be 20 numbers in 7th grade. The only thing it does is just simply add to the number of calculations you have to make. The process doesn't change. But a data set is just a bunch of numbers. So if I ask everyone, how many siblings do you have? And I literally go through every single person and collect that data all together, that would be called a data set. Okay? So it's numerical information. It also could be non-numerical, but not in 7th grade. All right, so here's my data set. I don't know what it's about, but there's my data set. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 numbers. It's just numbers, right? When we're trying to find the middle, the average, right? Where is the middle of all those numbers? We run into problems, mathematically speaking. And so today's class is about those problems. All right, so if I ask you to literally find the middle, well, we could define that a lot of ways. Middle could be like half the numbers on the left, half the numbers on the right. That could be the middle, right? Sort of, kind of. That is one of the measures of central tendency, by the way. Okay. But the first one we're going to do is not that one. It's called the mean. The mean. I know I didn't give you the thing I probably should have thought this one through and retaught the class, but I'm not. This needs to go in your notes somewhere. Mean. When we take the test next week, you're going to be asked to calculate the mean. The difficulty of the mean is simply remembering that mean, pun intended, means to do this. It's going to divide the numbers into 2 equal parts. Your answer may or may not be one of the numbers in the data set. We calculate the mean and we get 42.6. There might not be a 42.6 in your data set. There could be, but there doesn't have to be. If you ask the average person on the street to do a quote, an average, they're going to do a mean. You ask the average person, you ask the any person on the street and say, hey, calculate the average, they will intuitively do the mean. They may not even remember it's called the mean, they will do the mean. For instance, we were all born in different months. So if we did the mean of the month that we were born, like what's the middle, right? We'd be doing the mean. No, just the top. It's the exact middle. I mean, literally the exact middle of the data. In 8th grade, when I teach this, I throw up a picture of a very angry baby, because this is the one that is the meanest calculation of them all. I mean, it's mean, it's rough, it's the one that you're like, oh, please let me have a calculator to do this. Because this one requires a lot of math, the mean. That's how I remembered it. Okay, so somewhere, write these down for how many people already know how to calculate the mean? Yeah, it already gives you the steps in box 1. So these are the steps, so I won't, if you don't understand what the steps are, it's okay, we'll do a couple of examples. But the steps are basically step number 1, you add up all the numbers in the data set. Literally, every one. If there's 40 numbers, you are adding 40 numbers. How many people have heard of this program called Excel? Excel is called a spreadsheet. You know why it exists?
So people don't get to do that.
So people don't have to add up all the numbers. Excel does it for you. You simply say, give me the mean of these numbers, and Excel, poof, does it. I mean, literally, this is so often used worldwide, calculating the mean, that we got programs that do it for us. You do have to type in the data set, though. So if there's 400 numbers, somebody literally is typing in 400 numbers.
Don't you love?
Hopefully, you write an app so that you can collect that data, so you don't actually have to type in those numbers. The second step is you literally 1, 2, 3, count how many numbers are in your data set. Step number 3, you divide those two numbers. You divide step 1 by step 2. Step 1 is the sum of all the numbers in the data set. Step 2 is how many numbers. Step 3 is you divide those two. First divided by second. When you guys say, what's my grade point average? This is what you're doing. Hey, what's my grade in your class? And I say, well, I don't know, do the math. I'm asking you to add up all your grades, right? And then divide by how many grades you have. I got a 96 on the first test. Ooh, I got an A. I got a 54 on the second one because I didn't do any of my homework. And I got an 81 on my third one. There's been 3 tests. What's my grade in this class? Add the 3 up and divide by 3. That'll tell you exactly what your grade is for a test.
Mr. Chartier, what's your grade in your class?
What?
What's your grade in your class?
My grade in this class, it's probably an 8. All right. You've seen me make enough mistakes. I know it's not perfect though. All right, one quick example, and then we'll do something together. So this is that same data set. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The hardest part about this is, guess what? What? I would go with first and the second choice there. It's both the adding and the dividing, right? It's easy to make a silly mistake. Well, step number 1 is you got to add up all those numbers. On a test, would I give you 40 numbers? Absolutely not. So you get to high school and I say it's a calculator test. Then you got to know how to enter those numbers into your calculator. By the way, like I said, your calculator has a mean button on it. You just got to find it.
Oh, you're not going to show us where it is?
No, not in 7th grade. Okay, so we got to add up all those numbers. So I take all the numbers and I add them up. Step number 2 is I count the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's what we're dividing by. We're dividing by 9. That's the whole process right there. Guess what I'm leaving out?
All the hard work.
All the hard work. That's why I call this one the mean one, because it's pretty darn mean. when you got a lot of numbers in your data set. Okay, so we add them up, we do the division, and we're done. Make sure you put the word mean, because you're going to be doing all 4 of them today. You're going to be doing mean, median, mode, and range. So if you say the answer is 12, I don't know if that's your mean, median, mode, or range. What's up?
Where'd you get from plus all?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Step 2, count how many numbers are in the set. Step number 3, divide the sum by how many numbers in the set. That big long bar is a fraction bar.
Why do you put 0 for?
Good question. I assume I put in there because a lot of times if you just put an 8, I'm not saying you have to put a 0.8, but if you write it out, notice the spacing changes, and just for visual clarity, you put the same number of digits for every single number. It just, for the reader, it just makes it a little bit easier.
So
for them.
if you have 10,000 numbers in a number, that means you're gonna be seeing the 0 a lot.
No, because you're gonna do some common sense, like he said. I'm just gonna type in 8. All right, so let's do an easy one. Everyone grab your pencils. Let's do an easy one together. This is box 2. We can do this one. Because we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers, but we do have 5 numbers, so we need some scratch work. So let's see, 23, 14, 18, 28, and 25. 5 plus 8 is 13, plus 8 is 21, plus 4 is 25, plus 3 is 28. I got 28, just confirm that I didn't make a mistake. All right, 2 plus 2 is 4, 5, 6, 8, 10. I got 108. What'd you guys get?
I got 98.
Okay, it is really easy to make a mistake. I mean, it is super easy, and the mistake usually occurs, and usually the division goes okay, but it's the addition that I'll typically see a mistake. Okay, so we've added up all the numbers. It's 108. Questions? Step number 2, you count the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 numbers. Step number 3, you do the division. So I need to divide 108 by 5. Okay, life is grand. We like dividing by 5. It's easy. 5 goes into 10 twice. 5 goes into 8 once with 3 remainder. Add a 0. Add your decimal place. So what? 21.6.
I got 21.4.
5 times 4 is 20, not 30. All right. Is it complicated? No. Is it fraught with error because it's a big calculation? Absolutely, positively. It's easy to make this. Make sure you put the word mean, because you're going to be doing 4 of these: mean, median, mode, and range. Question on mean. How many people have never done a mean before? Now you have. Jasmine, you feel confident? Okay, good. All right, do we need to do another one? Don't say no if you mean yes. Do we need to do another one? Okay. I'll skip. For those of you that did this, Pierce, what'd you get? Box 3?
I got 23.6 repeated.
23.6 repeating, so about 23.7. That's what I got too. Make sure you put the word mean. If it is a rounding, don't put an equal sign because you round it, put an approximation symbol. Tonight for homework, it says, it doesn't say anything about rounding, so I'll leave it to you to decide. I gave you some easy ones. I gave you some more challenging ones. Okay. Some of the numbers are friendly. Some of the numbers are not friendly. All right. The big but here is that sometimes some weird things can happen with our data. Okay. Sometimes, notice, I got set number 1 and set number 2, 2 different data sets. Notice set number 1 is exactly like set number 2, except for the very last number. Well, the very last number on set 1 is a 4, but the very last number on set number 2 is 4 million.
Don't you love that
Right.
number?
If we did the mean for both of these, we would find something remarkable. Okay. If we did the mean for both of these, we would find something. The problem is that those 2 numbers are what we call outliers. We look at all the numbers, they look to be close to, I don't know, 180-ish, except for our 2 numbers that are not close to 100. They're not even remotely close to 180. They're really bad. This is what happens when everyone in the class takes their test except for one knucklehead who says, I'm not going to take the test, and I give a 0 to. If I try to calculate the class average, guess what happens?
It goes down.
Agreed. So I get a class average of something like, I don't know, I get a class average of a 42, when in fact the class average is not 42, it's probably 82. The fact that one person gets a 0 drags the average way down. Conversely, if this is how much money everyone has in their bank account, oh, I've saved $200, I've saved $160. And you got, Bill Gates' son who has $4 million in his bank account. And I say, what's the average that you guys have saved up in your bank accounts? Guess what happens when you do this average?
It goes up.
It literally, we get something like, if you do the average here, I think I did it in another class, it's like $1 million. I can't say that the average that everyone has in their bank account is $1 million because that's ridiculous, right? So the problem with outliers is if you do the mean, you get crummy data. You get a number that technically is the right number. It means nothing. What? Yes. Yes. If you have outliers, we're talking one number, maybe two at max. If you have outliers in your data, as you get to 8th grade, we don't calculate the mean ever. You can't. Well, I mean, you physically can't, but I'm saying you're going to get an answer that's meaningless if you have outliers. The example I typically give are houses. I know you guys don't buy houses, but I'm moving to Colorado Springs and we got to buy a house. So we go online and we say, well, what's the average house cost in Colorado Springs? Like everyday people, let's say the word average. What do they mean? They don't mean the word mean because there's always outliers. Somebody's selling a cardboard box over there for $10 and they're calling it a house. Somebody over there is selling that $4 million house. There are outliers in the data. So the issue is that when there's outliers in the data, you don't calculate mean. Tonight, you're going to calculate the mean every single problem. Just so you know, if you have outliers in your data, we don't calculate the mean ever. We calculate the median. Write this one down. The median. The median takes care of outliers. It's going to calculate a quote average by getting rid of the outliers. How does it get rid of the outliers? Well, it's the process of doing the calculation. We will use median when we have weird numbers. Not if we've got lots of weird numbers, then you don't have weird numbers. If I say, hey, how much do you get a week for allowance? How much you get a week for allowance? How much? I'm going to get $0. I'm going to get $5. I'm going to get $10. The one kid that's Bill Gates' son. I pick on Bill Gates. Because say, well, he gives me $100,000 a week. I mean, Bill Gates is a billionaire, right? I know if that's true, and I'm sure it's not true, but you know what I'm saying. If I calculate the average, and some kid literally gets $100,000 a week, and we're doing average allowances, that skews the numbers. You can't calculate a mean. You got to calculate a median. So it's very useful when you have outliers in your data. In fact, you never calculate the mean when you have outliers. You only calculate the median. The median is literally the middle number. At least that's its definition. The median may or may not be in the data set. Usually it's one of the numbers in the data set. Yeah.
Couldn't you also, if you did have really big outliers, would you kind of just like throw them in the trash can?
Agreed. And that's literally what happens when you calculate the median, is it gets thrown away. Okay. All right. Did I give you the steps for median? Yes or no? Sure. Matt? Okay, steps for calculating the median, it's still 3 steps. So you're going to put the numbers from least to greatest. Step number 2, you're going to figure out what the median is. This is kind of, I don't know, most kids like this. It's kind of fun. The issue is when there's no middle number. And you'll see what happens. Okay. Remember I said median comes in 2 flavors at the start of class. There's one where there is a middle number. There's one where there isn't a middle number. It's the pretty, and if you're listening to Pierce and I, we already talked about it.
Here.
The part about take the 2 numbers, add them and divide by 2. Okay. All right, so here's your example. Say, hey, it's the same data set, same data set. Seventh grade, we don't worry about. I mean, I give you that introduction. Hey, if there's outliers, you don't do the mean, you do the median. But I'm not going to give you a data set with outliers. It's just a data set. Okay, so here's my data set. Step number one, it's the hardest part of the median. It's the only hard part, is I put them in order from least to greatest. So here's where your mistake will occur. Step number one, you got to find the smallest number. What's the smallest number?
11 and 11.
How about 4? See how easy that was to make a mistake? So you find the smallest number, you write it, you cross it out. What's the next biggest number? We write an 8, cross it out.
You're not the,
You do that process. If there are repeated numbers, you put the repeated numbers as well. What?
can I go and get tissue, please?
Hurry up. All right, so I'm going to put those numbers from least to greatest. My recommendation is each time you use a number, cross it out. Each time you use a number, cross it out. Each time you use a number, cross it out. At the very end, do this one check step for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A lot of times, I even know I say to cross it out, I'll cross it out and I'll still make a mistake. So I will always count my numbers. Now, if there's 400 numbers, well, that's kind of hard. The nice thing is there's 400 numbers, you're going to be using a calculator, and your calculator will tell you, the calculators that do mean will say there are 400 numbers in your data set. Excel, when you do a mean, will say there are 400 numbers in your data set. Okay, here's the process. You write, how many people have never done a median before? You've not done a median. All right, here's what you do. Now, some teachers start on the right side, some start on the left side. It doesn't matter. You start on either end and you cross the number out. Cross out the smallest, cross out the biggest. I think I did this. Cross out the smallest, cross out the biggest, and then repeat that process. Cross out the smallest. You're trying to find the middle number. Cross out the smallest, cross out the biggest. Cross out the smallest, cross out the biggest. Guess what? How many numbers you're left with?
1.
10.
That's your median. Did I ever calculate anything here?
No.
That's why people like doing the median. Okay, so the median is 11. That's the process. That's flavor 1. Flavor 2 is more complicated. Not that much more complicated. Questions on what I just did? By the way, how many numbers were there in our data set? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When you have an odd number of numbers, this will always happen. You always will be left with one number. Life is grand. But what happens if you have an even number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, we got an even number. All right, now you got to pay attention. The process is still the same. Okay. Remember, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When I wrote those numbers from least to greatest, I probably would have been crossed them out. Now when we do this process, we cross off the smallest, cross out the biggest, cross off the smallest, cross out the biggest, cross off the smallest, cross out the biggest. If I cross out the smallest, bigger, I'm left with no numbers because there's an even number of numbers. You're either going to be left with one number or two numbers. Guess what? We're left with two numbers. Did you hear Pierce and I's conversation earlier?
No.
Guess what we do with these two numbers?
You subtract them.
Add
Add them,
them
then divide it
together
by
and
2.
then
Add the, if you're left with two numbers, that will happen every time you have an even number of numbers. Won't happen when you have odd numbers. When you have an even number of numbers, you'll be left with two. You simply take those two numbers
and mean.
and you find the mean of those two numbers. Exactly.
12. And from
11 plus 13, 24 divided by 2 is 12. Homework tonight gives you both integers and some decimals too, so it's not always going to be like a whole number or something 0.5. It could be a weird decimal as well too.
And if you're smart and you look at 11 and 13, you can tell.
Yeah, right. So he's saying that, well, if the numbers are literally 2 apart from each other, well, I know what the middle number is. It's 12, right? The problem is if this number was 14,
I know.
okay, then it's whatever, 25 divided by 12 and a half, right? But yeah, you can absolutely use that logic. All right, let's do one. Here's your data set. Yes, I use the same numbers over and over again. All right, let's do the median. The hardest thing is simply put the numbers from least to greatest. Putting the numbers from least to greatest. 14. Write a 14, pencils. Oh, you already did, cool. 14, 18, 23, 25, 28. I mean, there's only 5 numbers. You can do this pretty quickly. There's only 5 numbers. You can literally look at it and tell me the middle number, right? Right? But when there's 23 of them, you're gonna have to cross things out, right?
No.
But I mean, I can literally look here and say 23 is the middle number. Remember, median is physically the middle number. It's 23, right? You do have to do the process. Life is grand because it was an odd number, so life is good. 23. Make sure you put the word median, because you're gonna be doing all 4: median, mean, mode, and range. Questions? All right, let's do one with an even number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's see. Read me off the numbers. Least to greatest. Go, Gavin.
7, 11, 19, 22, 38, 45.
That's what I got too. What's the middle 2 numbers?
19 and 22.
Yeah, when the numbers are small, I mean, you can physically look there and say, oh, it's 19 and 22. Ooh, they're not one number apart now. So we have to actually add those up. If we're crossing things off, we're left with 2 numbers in the middle. So we have to add those. That's what, 41 over 2?
Yeah.
And that would be what, 20 and
20.5.
20.5. That was only 2 examples. Was that enough?
Yes.
Don't say yes if you mean no. The other kids have had this class twice already too, so.
Yeah, they're special.
All right.
They're special.
I said mean, median, mode, and range. Mean, median, mode, and range. We did mean, we did median. Let's do the next one. There is one other measure of central tendency, and it's called the mode. The mode is used when there's non-numerical data, or there's things where you want to find the middle where it isn't really the middle. What's your shoe size, Abby? I'm glad you know it. What's your shoe size? What's shoe size? What's shoe size? Shoe size.
I don't know.
Shoe size.
Oh,
big.
7.
Shoe size.
It ranges between an 8.5 and a 9 and maybe
So,
a 10.
Obviously, if I'm asking you shoe size, the answer is a number. Would it make any sense to calculate a mean with shoe sizes? Would it make? Right, I'm just saying, if you have different people, the issue is if you own a shoe store and you want to know what sizes should I buy, guess what you really want to know?
Most common size.
What is the most average or common size shoe for girls, boys, kids, infants, that sort of thing? Well, how do you find that out? You certainly can't calculate a mean. You can't do a median either.
The mode.
You got to do what's called a mode. And so a mode is the most frequently repeated number, right? It may or may not also be the mean or the median. It could be by coincidence be the mean or be the median. But the mode is the most frequently repeated number in the data set.
But then what if the number repeats?
If no number repeats itself, there's no mode. Okay. So the mode, if you need to write this down, by the way, you guys have already heard the class, but football jerseys, right? They only have 2 digits or 1 digit, right? What's the most frequently used football jersey in the NFL? That's a mode question. That's not an average question. You're not going to add up all the numbers and divide by how many numbers. That wouldn't give you the number. You're also not going to do the median. You're going to do what's called the mode. You're selling football jerseys and you're a business owner, you want to know which one sells the most because that's the one everyone wants. Has nothing to do with a mean or a median. It has to do with the most frequently bought football jersey. I don't know what it is. Anybody know?
83.
It's 1.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right.
No, 71.
1 or 10.
Why would you want 4 or less?
Well, who's 1 or 10? Who's what players?
10 is like Terry.
Is 10 also quarterback?
No, 12. No, 12 is 12.
1's a quarterback though, right?
Yeah, 1.
I thought
Six.
single digit numbers are quarterbacks sort of.
And then there's quarterback is 18, 12,
Oh, it is. Okay.
6, 1, 7, 15.
Is there math behind this process? All right. All right. If you need to write this down, write this down. Mode. It's the number that appears the most in a data set. Now, Ace or Pierce was just asking, well, what happens if there is no number that's repeated? There's no mode. Also, could have multiple numbers that are repeated multiple times. Listen carefully. I didn't listen to my math teacher in 7th grade. All I heard was repeated number, and I was like, yep, I'm just going to pick any repeated number that I see in the data set. It's not any repeated number, it's the most repeated number. So you can have multiple modes, right? You can have lots of repeated numbers. You're going to pick the one that's most, and you can also have two or three or four modes. If they're all repeated the same number of numbers, and it's the most, then you pick those. Gavin? Go ahead. All right. There can be no mode if there's no repeated numbers. There can be one mode, and there can be multiple modes. This is the part I didn't listen to my teacher in 7th grade. I know. I remember getting this wrong. Still causing me problems. Just because a number is repeated doesn't make it the mode. It's got to be the most repeated. If it's multiple modes and one number is repeated 10 times and another number is repeated 10 times, you can have two modes. 3 numbers are repeated 10 times, you can have 3 modes. If a number's been repeated twice and a number's been repeated 5 times, the mode is the one that's been repeated 5 times, not the one that's been repeated. That's the part I didn't listen. I just thought it was repeated numbers. Hopefully you're not like me. All right, data set. Felicity, are those numbers big enough? Can you see them? What's the mode here? This is hard. There's a 17, there's a 17. Any other repeated numbers up there? So then the mode is 17, right? Lily, too small, or can you see? All right, what's the mode? I don't know, 4 is repeated. 4 is repeated.
Yeah, but there's only like 2 4s.
All right, you got it.
Oh, it's about the
Just because 4 is repeated, my mistake. Just because the 4 is repeated doesn't make it a mode. It's the one that's repeated the most.
oh.
We got one more to do, and it's the easiest one. Go. Okay. No mode. In French, what's the word for I want it with ice cream?
No.
Is it French?
No,
Yeah, I believe it's French.
No,
If you want your dessert with ice cream, guess what you always say?
no more. No more.
You say a la mode.
What?
You've never heard that before?
Never heard that
I think it's French.
I mean, how do you say something in French?
Poisson.
Cheese.
So you got that?
All right. No numbers repeated, so no mode is perfectly fine answered. The mode is no mode. All right. What do we got, Malachi? What's the mode?
Two and
What?
2.
Well, how many 2s are up there?
2.
Okay. Any other number repeated?
One.
Yeah, 2 and 1.
So I see 2 1s, 2 2s. And that's it. So what's the mode?
2 and 1.
2 and 1 or 1 and 2. It doesn't matter the order that you write them. Okay, cool.
So it could be one and 2 halves.
No. I mean, unless you had 2 halves is a repeated number. All right. Are we good on mode?
Maybe.
All right.
Find the set.
Who haven't I called on?
me.
All right, me. What's the mode?
Let me see here. I can't really see. No mode. Wait, no, 4. I'm an idiot.
You just realizing.
All right. Keegan, what's the mode?
10.
Yeah, what he said.
Wait, no, I'm not Keegan.
You said
What am I
10.
talking? Oh yeah.
What?
That was me. Can I go?
Go ahead. Next one.
No mode.
No mode.
Next one's 7 and 2.
And the next one is
7 2.
And 9.
9 is not repeated.
Where do you
Yes, it
see
is.
2 9s?
I see a 9 and then I see a 9 right beside it.
All right. Last one, and then we're done.
It's a jump.
This one is very easy to remember. Most people never make a mistake on this one. It is how spread out is the data? Why would I care about this? Well, let's just use teacher thing. Everyone takes a test, literally we have these conversations as teachers. We're like, well, what's the spread on your data? The spread on your data means how far is it from the student that scored the lowest to the student that scored the highest. We would like, not in all cases, but in a test, we would like your range to be small, right? If everyone scores between an 80 and a 95, that's a pretty small spread. But I still have some kid got a 10, some kid got a perfect paper. That means there's something strange going on in your class. Usually something weird like that means that, well, that one kid probably wasn't paying any attention.
It means that Keegan was falling asleep again.
But other times, especially when there's a lot of F's, why are we picking on Keegan?
Because
Yeah.
he's
Keegan.
Because he's
Oh
Keegan.
my god.
He hasn't slept a single second in this class.
Yes, he has.
I was
Not
fully-
surprising.
I was fully expecting it, but no, he's done well today.
could say the same about other classes though.
All right, so
That's
spread
true.
is simply the distance between the highest and lowest number. It's a subtraction issue. Why is it important? Well, it tells you whether your data is compressed or way spread apart. Okay. Sometimes you want to be spread apart. Sometimes you might want to be compressed. It just depends upon the situation. So notice on my first data set right here, 9 minus 1 is 8. My range is what the definition is, was 8. So the last one is your range.
Oh, I like this one.
Difference, $20 fancy word for subtraction. Difference between the largest data point and the smallest. That just means,
Put it in order.
well, do you have to put the numbers in order from least to greatest, yes or no,
I think.
to do the range? Yeah. Do you have to put the numbers from least to greatest to do the range? Why? Well, if you had already done the median, they're already in the order from least to greatest, right? And by the way, tonight for homework, you're doing mean, median, mode, and range. So, well, it's going to be pretty easy tonight. If all they do is say calculate the range, then it's kind of up to you. Could you put them in order from least? Sure. You just don't have to.
Wait,
But you do have to identify the biggest and the largest.
The biggest and the largest?
Sorry, thank you for correcting me there. The biggest and the smallest. At least someone was listening. Well, then why was she the only one that set off alarm bells on?
Because she's smart and we're not. Failures.
This is why eventually my slides are all perfect. Because I have plenty of kids that do
Are we
hang
the
on
ones-
every word.
Are we the ones that fix your slides?
I don't know. I should absolutely keep track of that, but I don't. All right. I don't want to make this more challenging because it's not challenging. You find the largest, you find the smallest, you subtract. Can anybody pick out the biggest number there?
Yeah.
08. If you're
It's 20. And the smallest number is 20 minus 4 is
16.
all right. It's not challenging because it's not, right? The range is going to be 16. Yeah, you can just do it. Now, obviously, tonight for homework, some of the numbers are friendly, some of them are not. Probably a half of them, the numbers are friendly, half of them are not.
Oh, that's not good.
I have the worksheet.
Yes, everyone can have the worksheet as long as we all got it, what we're going on. Notice, here's unfriendly numbers. Smallest 11, the biggest one is,
That's not unfriendly. That's 89. That's 88.
how about 100?
That's 88.
How about 100?
Yeah, give us 100.
Because the biggest number is not 99, it's 111.
I'm blind.
All right,
Can you give us a
worksheet is coming at you right now.
Do you get a bonus on how well you do on the test?
Do I get a bonus?
Yeah.
No, I don't get compensation for whether you do well or poor. However, what I do get is called a renewed contract. In other words, if I'm a teacher who can't teach math, the school would have no reason to keep me on. Do what?
There's some schools that are cheating.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
Now they're putting negative numbers, though.
Oh, no. Like,
Hey, we have music.
Jameson should be happy.
No.
No. My bicycle broke over this morning, so I didn't get to ride it.
Where does snow come from? And
There was a piece of snow that fell off the roof and it looks like a dead body. I'm not lying. It was like.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
I got it too.
How would you know it's a dead body?
Yeah, wait. He must have saw mine.
That's dead. Oh, God.
You can tell a falling body is either dead or alive.
Yes.
Wow.
No, because whenever something goes falling straight down, you know it's gonna die.
All right, e-learners, any questions? If not, I will see you tomorrow. Yeah.
Even if it's not evil,